If you're here, I guess it means that you absolutely love phrasal verbs. Or you hate them, you despise them, and you really know you need to improve your knowledge of phrasal verbs. Or maybe you just like to hear me waffle on, speak about random things for like an hour. So that's what I'm going to do. I have prepared 50 different conversation questions, each including a phrasal verb about 10 different topics. And I'm going to speak off the top of my head and provide you with some answers so you can work on your English phrasal verbs in a natural conversation. And well, here, I've got my cuppa, I've got my brew, so let's get started. The first topic is probably the topic that unites most people. Everybody loves to speak about travel and holidays. So let me kick off with the first question, which is, when you travel, do you prefer to set off early in the morning or later in the day? And set off means to begin your journey, essentially to leave wherever you are leaving from. So, well, in my case, for example, if I'm going to get a plane somewhere, I prefer to get it over and done with as quickly as possible. So in that regard, I would say that it's better to set off early. Now, I don't mean at the crack of dawn. I don't mean first thing in the morning. But if I can wake up at a reasonable time of, let's say, 7 a.m. and then set off at 8-ish, that's perfect, because usually it means that when you reach your destination, you'll still have time to, well, make the most of wherever you are, take advantage of your time, and have fun. So yeah, I prefer to set off early. Question number 2. Have you ever had to call off a trip at the last minute? And call off means to cancel. To be honest, I don't think I have. I've never had to call off any of my own trips. Sometimes I might call off some plans. Let's say that I had arranged to meet up with my friends, and then I wake up and I'm coughing, spluttering, I feel a bit under the weather. And then I'll have to call it off. And I'll have to call my friends and be like, hello, mate. Yeah, sorry. I'm not going to be able to make it because I've got a terrible cough and I feel really, really bunged up. I've got a bad cold. So a trip, honestly, I don't think I've ever called off any of them. But different plans, for sure, on a regular basis. What about you? Have you ever had to call off any trips? If so, let me know in the comments. And by the way, in the comments, I'll also leave a link to my brand new application that you can download to speak to me 24/7, whenever you want. We'll return to that later, but for now, question number 3. Do you usually check in online, or do you prefer doing it in person? Now, this question is a little bit old-fashioned, in my opinion, because nowadays, I think you are obliged to check in online. You have no option. It's 100% non-negotiable for like Ryanair, for example, because in fact, I went on a stag do in Girona, in Catalonia, the northeast of Spain last year. And you know what happens on stag do's, bachelor parties. You drink a lot, you go out a lot, you kind of forget about your routine. And I had to set off really early in the morning to get my flight back to Brussels. And amid all of the chaos and partying, I forgot to check in on the application. So I arrived at the airport and I was like, oh no, how did I forget? And I had to pay, I think it was 30 euros to be able to check in person, which is ridiculous, Ryanair pay people to help them to check in person if they want to do it. But in my case, I had to pay a fine. So I always check in online. And now I almost like set an alarm to make sure that I never forget, because I don't want to pay for it. No, 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 no. All right, question number 4. Who usually drops you off at the airport or the station. You'll know that I fly relatively often between Manchester and Brussels. And my dad always picks me up and drops me off at the airport. It used to be my mum a little bit more, but as she's getting a little bit older, perhaps, she gets a little bit afraid and nervous and panics when she has to travel on the motorway. And in the north of England, our motorways, they're not huge, but there are 3 different lanes. You have people speeding, accelerating, overtaking, and my mum isn't keen on it. She doesn't enjoy doing it. So my dad has taken over that role because he drives pretty much every day when he's working as a photographer. He'll often drive from Leeds to Manchester, to Sheffield, to Hull, to Newcastle. So he's a good, confident driver. And that's the reason why he'll always pick me up and he'll drop me off because honestly, it's more efficient. My mum actually picked me up 6 months ago from the airport and she got lost. And she's done this many, many times. But for some reason, the sat nav seemed to show her the wrong road, the wrong direction. So she ended up being late. So I was hanging around outside for half an hour. So to be honest, I prefer my dad to pick me up and drop me off. Okay, question number 5. How do you usually get around when you visit a new city? The way that I usually get around, almost always get around, is walking on foot. I love wandering around new cities. I think this is probably the thing that I do most when I'm traveling and I go on like a weekend away. I just wander around with my fiance. We'll have a look on all of these small streets, back streets, alleys, because that way I think you get to discover the real city, not just the city center where you've got all of these tourist attractions and landmarks, but we like to walk around. That way you discover more things and you can, you know, go for a walk after eating a lot. So then you can kind of burn off all of the calories that you've been consuming by walking. I mean, as long as the weather is nice, I would always get around on foot. Of course, if it's chucking it down, it's pouring it down, we might have to consider alternative options as well. So that's the first little topic related to travel and holidays. Now let's move on to the second one, which is work and career. So we've got some business English phrasal verbs coming up. And the first question is, do you find it easy to get along with your coworkers? And just a little note here, we can use get along with and get on well with to say that you have a good relationship with them. Now, I'd say yes, I don't have any coworkers at the moment. I'm a lone wolf, so to speak. But in previous jobs at different schools, I've always got on really well with my colleagues, my coworkers, my workmates. So it's something that I love doing because I think at work, it's one of the best places where you can make friends because you have so much in common. You're all in the same boat. You're all in the same situation. So it's a nice place to be able to develop a bond and get along with your coworkers. It'd be such a sad situation if you had some kind of like rivalry or arguments or fights with your coworkers because you wouldn't look forward to going to work. And most people don't look forward to going to work anyway. But if you want to avoid your coworkers, it makes it even worse. So yeah, I think I'm an easygoing person and it's easy to get along with me. All right, the next question. It is, have you ever taken on too much work and felt overwhelmed? And And to take on work is like to accept it, to assume that work. To be honest, I think I'm quite good at setting my limits, setting my boundaries. If I have a salary and if I'm a normal employee, then I'm not going to take on too much work because I know I'm not going to be rewarded for that work. I only do too much work or a lot of work when I know that there is something to gain from it. And in that scenario, I'm happy to go the extra mile. I'm happy to go above and beyond. But nowadays, working for myself, I sometimes take on too much work, and I know this is not going to last forever. But whilst I don't have children and I don't have really excuses for working a long time, I'm happy to take on so much work like I am doing right now at home, at my mom and dad's house, because I have more free time given that I don't need to cook as much or clean as much. So I'm trying to use this free time to, once again, get ahead with work. And there are some days when I feel a bit overwhelmed, waking up very early, and I'm like, maybe I need a break. Maybe I need to relax. So this evening, I'm actually going to meet up with my friends. We're going to go for a drink. We're going to go for a meal, probably some Indian, Pakistani food, nice hot curries, because I've been working very hard and taking on a lot of work over the last week. So it's about time that I treat myself and reward myself by, catching up with my mates. Let's keep going. The next question, which is the 8th question in total. What is the most effective way to deal with a difficult client? Deal with, we can also use handle or manage. Now, I want to kind of divide this into 2 sections. If your client isn't that important, you don't depend on that client to earn all of your money, then what's the point in dealing with them? If you don't enjoy working with a particular client, cancel the contract. Stop working with them because it's not worth it. It's not worth all of the work. So that is, on the one hand, what you could do. But addressing the second part of this question, if you 100% rely on this client and there's no way that you can stop working with them, I think all you have to do is try to be a bit of a yes man or a yes woman. And you'll try to always say that you will do what they say. You say yes. You conform to their requests. And this is what you say. But then if it's absolutely impossible to meet their requirements and expectations, well, you come clean. You tell the truth and you say, listen, I agreed to it. I said yes, but your demands were unrealistic. So I think honesty is sometimes the best policy. The best thing to do is to be honest, tell the truth. If they're being difficult, there's going to come a time where you'll have to say, listen, I'm trying, I'm saying yes, but I can't meet your demands. And it is what it is. You know, there are more important things in life than one difficult client. Now, before I answer the next question, I'm just going to have a little bit of my tea because sometimes I'll make myself a cup of tea when I record one of these extra long videos. And then I forget about it, or I'm too busy rambling and waffling on. And then it gets cold. Nobody likes cold tea, do they? And by the way, are you a tea fan? Are you more into coffee? I prefer coffee, but after midday, especially when I'm back in England, you know, tea's nice. It's nostalgic. So the 9th question. Is it hard for you to switch off once you get home? Yes. It's impossible for me to switch off. I never switch off. My work is my life, and my life is my work. And that might sound a little bit sad to you, but I'm quite happy with the way it is. And if I have really creative or innovative ideas because I cannot switch off from work, then I see that as a positive. Like, yes, because a lot of my thinking time goes to thinking about how I can improve my content, my classes, my application, and so on. So, to sum up, yeah, I cannot switch off work. That's the way it is. Now, question number 10. Have you ever turned down a job offer, refused a job offer? Maybe I've mentioned this before, but when I traveled to Australia to work there, and I ended up becoming an English teacher in Australia, which was great news, I was surprisingly in demand. And this was 6 years ago. So I had a few years of experience teaching English in Spain before I went to Australia. And it seemed that there was a shortage of native English teachers in Australia because many people were going there to get a student visa and study English while working at the same time. So I applied for lots of different jobs and they all offered me the job. Maybe I'm fantastic at interviews or they were just desperate. But I had to choose. So I accepted the first offer and I think the best offer. So then when I received another job offer a few days later, unfortunately, I had to break the news to them and say, I'm afraid I've already accepted another job, so I have to turn down your offer. But thank you so much anyway. But it was a good time, a good moment. And it's definitely a good problem and situation to be in, where you have to turn down a job offer because you have a better offer elsewhere. Now, the third topic is health and fitness. So let me begin with now the 11th question. I think. What's the hardest habit for you to give up? The hardest habit for me to give up, without a shadow of a doubt, is eating large portions. Actually, no. I'm going to take that back because I think it would be possible for me to cut down on my portion size. But nowadays, the hardest habit for me to give up is scrolling. And I think a lot of people will feel represented by my answer. Because, of course, I'm always on my phone. I'm always editing videos, scrolling around up and down. But it becomes a problem when you're watching a series or you're watching a film and you look at your phone and think, oh, I'm just gonna grab it, see if anything has changed in the world, see if I've received any notifications. And this is so hard to stop doing. I'm not concerned about it at the moment, but I am definitely addicted to it. I always feel like I need to grab my phone. I'm recording this on my phone right now, and it's been 15 minutes, something like that. I'm going to record for another 40 or something similar. And now I'm curious. What notifications might I have received? Any exciting ones? We'll find out in 45 minutes. Okay, next question, number 12. How many times a week do you usually work out? Back home here at my mum and dad's, I haven't been working out at all. And I feel guilty. I feel bad about it. I've been going for walks, which I always do. And that, for me, it doesn't count as working out, but it's doing exercise. And when I'm in my normal routine, I tend to work out 3 or 4 times a week. That might be going to the gym, doing some body weight activities at home with my rubber band, the elastic band, or going for a run. So I try to make sure that I do it more than half of the time. So there are 7 days in a week. So if I work out 4 times, then more than half of the time, I'm being a good boy. I think that's a good little bit of balance, but Everybody's different. Question number 13. Have you ever passed out from heat or exhaustion? And pass out is to faint. Yes, speaking about working out, when was it? Maybe a year ago, I went for a run, but I went for a run just after, I think, having COVID. Again, I didn't test myself, but it felt like either a bad cold, fever, flu, or COVID. And I just did a quick 5 kilometer, which usually isn't too intense. It's not so demanding for me. But I did it, and I remember feeling a bit lightheaded, a bit dizzy. So when I opened the front door, I remember suddenly feeling really, really lightheaded. And the next thing I remember is waking up on the floor of my apartment building. So not my flat, but literally as soon as you unlock the door and enter the apartment block of 4 houses, just at the entrance, I was lying down. The back of my head was hurting. I had scraped and scratched my arm. And I was like, oh, where am I? What's going on? What's happening? And it suddenly clicked that I had passed out. So that was a little bit scary. Luckily, I came around, meaning I regained my consciousness, and I walked upstairs to my flat. I had a drink, I had a shower, I felt a little bit better, but that could have gone really wrong because me passing out next to some very, very hard stairs, I could have cracked my head when I fell over. So yeah, pretty scary. The lesson here is don't try to do exercise before you're fully recovered. I learned it the hard way. Now, next question. Question number 14. What's your favorite way to warm up before intense exercise? I don't think I warm up very much. I will do some stretches, if I know I'm going to do some exercise, I'll stretch and maybe I'll start like jogging on the spot. But I don't do a big warm up. Perhaps I'll need to do it more as I get older because my bones won't be quite as strong and my joints won't be as flexible. But usually I only stretch to warm up. That'll do for that question. Question number 15. Do you think people should cut down on sugar more than they do now? And cut down on is reduce. I don't know. Who am I to say? Everybody is different. For example, here, I'm eating a lot of fruit and having a lot of juice, which is very healthy. But there is a lot of natural sugar. So sometimes I notice after I have lots of juice and pieces of fruit that my teeth feel a bit more sensitive. Because when I'm living independently, usually I'll maybe have bananas and that's it. So I'm very minimalist and I don't buy anywhere near as much fruit. So I should probably cut down on sugar because I've had Christmas eating lots of desserts, lots of chocolate. Now I'm being healthier, but still having so much fruit. So I need to cut down on sugar. Do you need to cut down on sugar? I don't know. Let me know, or at least have a think. Should you cut down on sugar or something else? And now let's move on to the fourth category, and it is technology. And the first question related to technology, question number 16, is how often do you back up your important digital files? I think it's done automatically because on iCloud, on Google Drive, I think they take care of all of the work. So they will back up all of your files without you needing to do it consciously. because I never actually take time out of my routine to back up my files. Should I? I don't know. So thank God Apple and Google are in charge of my decision making. Next, question number 17. Do you find it difficult to keep up with the latest tech trends? Yeah, I'd say so. I find it hard to keep up to date with the latest tech trends because I've never been that interested in technology. Maybe I've become more interested in technology recently because I'm fascinated by the world of artificial intelligence. I say fascinated, but I'm also frightened about what's in store for us in the future. But there are many YouTube channels or podcasts that I'll check out just to know what's going on in the world of tech. But it's still quite difficult because it doesn't come naturally to me. Next question. 18. What do you do if your computer or phone breaks down? If it stops working? If this happens, I panic. I panic a lot. Because if my computer breaks down, I have to teach my classes on my phone, which is very, very difficult. I can still do it, but I can't really share my screen as much. I can't take notes as much, which I usually do in my classes. By the way, if you'd like to join my classes, once again, I'll leave a link in the description so you can check out how much it costs and how it works. But yeah, if I'm teaching on my laptop and it breaks down, I will panic. If then my phone also breaks down, I am doomed. I'm lost because I can't do anything. So I'll try to borrow somebody else's phone and call for urgent help, or I would get in touch with Apple in this case to try to fix the problem. But yeah, it's a big issue because I depend so much on technology that when it stops working, I don't deal with it very well. Next question, 19. Why do you think some people choose to log off from social media permanently, to disconnect, to sign out? Of course, I'm all over social media, but I know of people who decide to take a break. And I think the main reason is because people waste time on social media. That's not everybody, but a lot of people do. Secondly, whether you like it or not, you end up comparing yourself to others. And this isn't always the best thing for your mental health. And thirdly, I think social media isn't what it used to be. Social media used to be a place where you would connect with your friends and the people you follow, and that's it. Now, there's been a drastic change. It's very different to how it used to be because of the TikTokization. Now it doesn't really matter if you follow people because all of their posts aren't always going to be immediately visible to you, but you're going to get pushed different content from creators or people from around the world. And if you engage with that content, the platforms are going to continue to feed you similar content. And this can be a little bit creepy, but at the same time, it feels a bit invasive. So that's probably the main reason nowadays why people decide to do it, because a lot of people have become disillusioned with social media. It's not what it should be. It's not what it used to be. And that's why they're packing it in. They're deciding to quit it. And fair play to them. Fair enough. I don't know if you agree, because that felt like I was ranting a lot. So let me know if you have the same opinion as me. Now, question number 20. Do you prefer to set up your own electronic devices or have someone else do it. And setup is like install or configure. I prefer somebody else to do it. If it's something complicated, I would much rather someone else do it. If it's something supposedly easy, like setting up a new phone, then I want to do it myself. It's kind of exciting. It's like you're unboxing something. You're discovering this new toy. But if it was something more complicated, where I would struggle and question myself, I'd rather give it to someone else. 100%. Next topic is relationships. Let me have a little bit more tea before it goes a little bit cold. Okay, now it's lukewarm, meaning it's a little bit warm, but it's starting to get cold. So this is question number 21, I think. Who is the person you look up to the most in your life? And look up to is admire. The person I look up to is difficult to say because I look up to different people for different reasons. I look up to my mum for how family-oriented she is and how selfless she is, that she's always happy to help people. I always looked up to my granddad because he was like the center of attention and he was a great storyteller. He was the life and soul of the party, but was also very tender and had a very good heart as well. So I also look up to my dad and my sister and other people, but if I had to pick, I'd go for my mum and my granddad, I think. Here's what it is. Next question. Is it easy for you to make up with a friend after a big argument? And make up with someone is like to make peace with them, to settle your grievances. Firstly, I very rarely have arguments. I hate arguing. I hate fighting. I just don't get anything out of it. I don't like conflict. It brings me down. So, one, I never really have arguments. But two, if I did have an argument, I would assume they would be over something so severe, so serious, that it'd be hard for me to forgive that person and make peace, make up with them. So, while this doesn't happen to me personally, if I had a big argument, it would not be easy to make up with that person. Next question, which I think is question number 23. Have you ever run into an old friend in a very unexpected place? Yes, I have. This happened to me 2 weeks ago. It was on the 28th of December, and I ran into an old mate. I came across an old mate in the strangest of places. Maybe I mentioned this when I recorded a similar podcast a few weeks ago, but it was so strange because I hadn't seen this guy for a decade. I hadn't seen him since we were at university. And then we were both in a pub. He was carrying 3 or 4 pints. I was just coming back from the toilet, and I was going over to sit with my brother-in-law and my cousin. And he was looking at me like he knew me. And I was looking at him like, is that? No, surely it can't be. And then he said, Lewis? And I was like, it must be. But wait, what's his name? I can't remember his name. And I was like, Ollie? And I was like, no, it's not Ollie. It's like, Dave, of course, Dave. What are you doing here? So I ran into Dave, my old friend from university, in a pub in Skipton, close to where I live, but he lives near Birmingham. And I was just like, what are the chances? This is mental. Why on earth are you here? So yeah, it was surreal, but it was nice. It was nice to run into him. We had a little chat and then went our separate ways. But it was fun. It was nice. Next question, 24. How often do you go out with your friends on weekends? Well, I rarely go out during the week, so I almost always go out with my friends at the weekend or on weekends. You can use both. But yeah, I usually choose Friday or Saturday because I'm getting old, so I can't handle going out on a hangover. So I'll usually go out with my friends on Friday or Saturday, and the other day I'll just take it easy and relax at home. Next question. Do you think it's better for children to grow up in a big city or a small town? If I had to say, I'd probably say that it's better for kids to grow up in a small town compared to a big city. I think it's usually safer if you bring up children in small towns in the countryside. In a big city, it can be very overwhelming and very intense and very stressful. So if you have young kids, babies, as a parent, it might be a little bit complicated. There's also the counter argument of if you grow up in a big city, then you have more to do. You have more leisure activities. You have more possibilities of everything. But if I had to pick, I'd say it's better to grow up in a small town. You have a quieter, simpler, easier, probably more boring life. So you pick whatever you choose. Next topic is hobbies and free time. And the first question is, what new hobby would you like to take up this year? Again, some of these I might be repeating them if you listen to the similar podcast of me talking about 50 English expressions. But repetition is always important. So I'm going to answer it again. A hobby I would like to take up this year is a new sport. Last year I tried to take up darts, pool, paddle. None of them really worked out. So maybe I'll choose something else. Maybe I'll take up cycling. Or maybe I'll take up climbing. But I feel like I should take up a new sport. How about you? Are you thinking about taking up any new sports in the near future? If so, again, let me know in the comments. And let's keep going with the next question. Do you often get together with friends to play games or sports? No, I don't. And it's a bit sad. I wish I did this more often. Because as a teenager, I'd always get together with my friends to play football, play cricket, play rugby, you name it, we played it. And nowadays, it's always very hard to get together with enough friends to play sport. From time to time, every now and again, we'll get together to play board games, which is really fun as well. But we don't do it anywhere near as often as we should. So perhaps this could be another New Year's resolution. Let's see. And the next question is, what is your favorite way to chill out after a very long day? My favorite way to chill out after a long day, assuming this is a work day, so then I finish very late in the evening, one of the best ways to chill out is just eating a nice meal, watching a good series, and cuddling. When I say cuddling, I mean like hugging. So, of course, I'm referring to cuddling on the sofa with my other half. Because if you've had a stressful day, there's nothing better than a kiss, a hug, and quality time together. Maybe I'm a cheesy guy. Maybe I'm a romantic. I don't know. But I reckon a lot of you agree with me. I think, at least. And let's keep going. Let's keep going. So the next question is, have you ever given up a hobby because it was too difficult or boring. I don't know about give up permanently, but I have a love-hate relationship with running and preparing for races, marathons, half marathons. And it's a very cyclical thing. So I'll get really into running and be really motivated, really determined to get faster and fitter. And then I fall out of love with it. I get a bit sick and tired of it. So I quit. I give up. But I often give up for a short amount of time. And then I feel like I miss it, which is weird because I usually give up because, as I said, I'm fed up. So it's something I give up, but then return to very often because it's difficult. And sometimes it is also a little bit boring. Next, and the last question related to hobbies. Which new activities would you like to try out in the future? Well, it's perhaps not new 100% because I've tried it before, but golf is a sport that I'd like to try out and give a proper go at. Because I like watching all sports, so I don't mind watching golf tournaments like the Masters and similar. And it looks like a very sociable sport that you can do throughout your life, even as you get older. So I'd like to try out golf again and give it a proper go. I'd like to give it a real chance and see if I can get into it and start doing it with friends. Because, of course, you can play golf on your own, 100% by yourself. But it's very common as well to go and play a round of golf with a friend, two friends, or three friends. So it's very sociable. So I'd like to try out golf and give it a real shot, give it a real chance. And now we have another topic. And this topic is all related to environment and nature. Remember the pronunciation? We don't say nature, na. We say nature, nature. Let me just have a little bit more of my tea. Okay, it's still drinkable, still lukewarm. It's not cold yet. Delicious. The first question related to this topic is, what are the best ways for households to cut down on plastic waste? And we've already seen cut down on. It just means reduce. So I think the biggest culprit, the biggest person to blame for plastic waste is supermarkets. Because you will see sometimes supermarkets will be selling apples, oranges, strawberries, grapes, even bananas with plastic around them. Which, in particular, we think of the example of bananas, they already come with peel. Like, it's protected. So you don't need an outer layer of protection in plastic. And of course, plastic isn't biodegradable. So it's not going to disappear after a year, 10 years, 100 years. It's going to stay there forever almost. So we need to campaign for supermarkets to cut down on plastic packaging. And we can do this also by making different choices. So if when we go to the market, they don't give us plastic, but they give us paper bags, then, okay, that's a step in the right direction. And in fact, the usual supermarket where I go, Carrefour, in Belgium, over the last year, since I moved to Belgium, they have stopped serving you with plastic bags. So initially, we had the change where they started to charge you per plastic bag, and now they just don't do them. They just do paper bags, which is slightly annoying, slightly frustrating, because they break very easily. But I think it's a necessary change. And all it does is force you to change your habits, which is a positive thing. So nowadays, when I go to the supermarket, I'll take my big backpack. So then I know I don't need to ask for paper bags or, if they had them, plastic bags. So that's the main thing. We need to change our consumption habits so that the big players change their producing habits. But as with everything, it's easier said than done. Next question. Do you worry that the world is running out of natural resources? Wow, that's quite a change from all of these simple questions we've been having earlier. Honestly, no, I don't worry about running out of natural resources. The only natural resource that I worry we might run out of is water, drinking water. Because you notice there are countries that are very, very dry. They have a lot of problems with droughts, and rivers are drying up. There is less rainfall. I don't know if it's Pakistan or Iran, but there is less and less drinking water available to people living in these countries. If there are any people from these countries tuning in, let me know if this is true or it's just fake news, because I don't know. But that is the one resource that we should be very worried about, and we should do as much as possible to consume less water and try to store more water. Because if we don't have water, we don't have anything. Water is life. Which is why sometimes I feel guilty for eating meat. Because in order to have cows, pigs, any kind of wildlife, and cattle in particular, you need a lot of water. Whereas to grow vegetables, you need a very small amount of water, relatively speaking. So, yeah, that's a message. Maybe I should be more vegetarian. But again, that's also easier said than done. But no, when it comes to other minerals, I don't worry at all. I think we have much bigger problems going on in the world, which I'm sure you can understand and guess what I'm referring to worry about running out of natural resources. The only one which is a problem and more urgent, I think, in some areas of the world, is water. So yeah, that's what I'd say. Next question. How can local communities help out with environmental cleaning projects? And help out is just another way of saying help. I think this is difficult, but maybe there should be more incentives to help out with environmental cleaning projects. So if governments incentivized picking up plastic, if governments incentivized taking care of parks, woods, forests, then local people would do it. I think usually the problem is money and big corporations, because 9 times out of 10, it's not simple people, simple individuals who are harming the environment, but rather it is big corporations who only care about the bottom line and increasing profits. So they will do whatever it takes to do it, sometimes at the expense of the environment and our natural resources. So again, I don't think it's up to us. I don't want to blame the normal people, because I think there are people who are way more powerful, who are the problem for this, and the ones that need to lead the change. So let's hope it happens. Fourth question related to the environment. Why do some people find it so easy to throw away items that could be recycled? I think recycling around the world is on the up. It's been improving for many years now, which is a definite positive thing. And recycling isn't that difficult in most countries, but our lives can be so difficult. And we can be so busy that you don't want that added tiny bit of stress of throwing something away into separate bins. Now, I don't think there's really an excuse. I think that we should all recycle. So I'm not, let's say, I'm not removing their blame. I'm not taking away the blame from people who do throw away things that could be recycled. But sometimes it's just an added obligation or chore that you have to take into account. So people will do it without thinking, or they throw away things without knowing the damage it could actually do to the environment. So I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm on the fence here. And one more question related to the environment. How often do you get away to the countryside to enjoy nature? Not enough. I don't get away hardly enough to enjoy nature. But for my birthday last year, my fiance got me a nice little trip, which wasn't very far away. Of course, we live in Brussels, and we got a taxi to the countryside, but it was literally the next town outside of Brussels where you've got a big forest. We stayed there for the weekend, and we were just breathing fresh air. And it felt so good to walk around the woods, walk through the forest, see all this wildlife. And it's a great thing for your mental health as well. I think being out in nature really grounds you, and it also gives you peace. It gives you this sense, this feeling like, okay, all my problems are fading away. So I don't get away enough, but when I do, I love it. I love getting away, especially to the countryside or to the beach. Next topic. I think it's the 8th topic now, maybe? And it's related to learning and education. First question. Did you ever fall behind in your studies at school? You know, progress more slowly than the rest of the students? I don't think I did, I think I was always on track, and I always managed to keep up with my colleagues, my classmates at school. I'm not saying that I was the brightest child at school, but I always managed to just about keep up with the others. I didn't quite fall behind. And the only subject that I kind of fell behind in was maths or chemistry, because I couldn't get my head around it. I couldn't quite understand why 2 plus 2 equaled 4. That's a simple example, but you get my drift. You know what I'm on about. Because my brain doesn't work in that way. So I was falling behind a little bit, and I got a private tutor just to get me through the difficult stages of the exams. So linking that with the next question, how do you keep up with all your homework or reading? I kept up with the difficult topics and difficult subjects with help from my tutor, but also because I was aware that I was struggling. I was aware that I wasn't doing very well. So I knew that I needed to really knuckle down and try hard to improve and keep up with my homework. Because there were other topics that, for example, were a piece of cake. They were easy peasy. So I didn't really need to make a big effort. So that finite amount of effort that I had, I dedicated to difficult topics, difficult subjects, rather than the ones that I knew I was going to pass and get a high mark regardless. Next question. Do you prefer to look up words in a dictionary or guess their meaning. As a teacher, I usually recommend that first you read the context and try to guess the meaning. Because most of the times, even if we're not sure what something means, you can get the gist. You can more or less understand the generic idea. And then, I would say, if you just want to confirm your guess, your prediction, look it up. Type on word reference, Google Translate, or physically look it up in a dictionary. Then I think it's a good thing to do. But I would be cautious of always looking it up in a dictionary immediately, because then your brain isn't doing any of the work. And in today's world, our brains aren't doing a lot anyway, because we're constantly asking artificial intelligence to do things for us because it is more productive and efficient, like these questions that I'm answering at the moment. I did ask AI to generate them for me. So I am to blame as well. It's natural and normal to be lazy. But if you've got the time, make the effort, try to guess the meaning. And let's move on now to the next question. Is it helpful when a teacher points out your mistakes immediately? To be honest, this is more of a question for you. What do you think? I guess you've had experience with different English teachers. Do you think it's beneficial for your mistakes to be pointed out immediately? Or do you think it's better if a teacher will wait and not interrupt you? Have a think whilst I have some more tea. You see, now it's getting a little bit too cold. I waited too long, didn't I? So I think that the way I normally correct people in class is that I'm writing down all of the corrections, all of the notes, the new vocabulary, while students are speaking, just so they have a record so they can go over these notes after class. So I don't usually interrupt, but I will interrupt when I see that a student makes very basic mistakes or mistakes that they repeat quite a lot, or mistakes that are difficult to understand, so I might need to correct and explain quickly. So those are let's say the three scenarios when I have to point out the mistake. And I think most of my students like this method of correction. But some people might prefer anytime you make a mistake, it's pointed out immediately. On the other hand, other students might prefer to just never be interrupted. We're all different, and if a private student asks not to be corrected, it'd be a bit weird, but the customer is always right, so I'd adapt to them. Now, the last question, related to learning. What is the best environment for you to soak up new information? The best environment? If this is referring to the best place, I think I probably learn best when I'm at home, when I don't have distractions, when it's probably raining outside, because then I don't look outside the window and feel jealous and envious of all of the people enjoying the sun and soaking up the sun. So I'm not sure if that's what this question is referring to, but if I can choose my ideal environment to learn, it would be at home without distractions and a dark, wet, rainy, gloomy day. That way I don't feel tempted to go out. Now we've got the final two topics. And this one is related to finance and money. You'll know that I kind of like money at the moment, that I watch a lot of things about finance. It's weird, but I like it. Call me weird. I'm a weirdo. I'm a loser. So this is the 40th question. And it is, are you currently saving up for something special? Yeah, I'm saving up for my wedding. And of course, my fiance's family will help. My family will help. But we still need to spend a significant amount of money for our wedding and our honeymoon. So I'm trying to save up as much money as possible for these two events. And of course, we will receive some gifts when we get married as well. So maybe in the end, we won't actually lose that much money. And in that scenario, well, we don't have a house. We don't own a house. So we want to increase our savings as much as possible to be able to invest in a house for us to maybe start a family or just have a nice flat. I don't know what the future holds, but yeah, I'm trying to save up as much as I can at the moment. Next question. Have you ever had to pay someone back a large amount? No. I would hate to borrow money from friends. Of course, I could borrow money from family, but they probably wouldn't want me to pay it back if it was my parents. They'd just give it to me. So I'm lucky enough that I've never needed to borrow so much money from friends. I don't know if my friends would actually lend me the money, but I would feel so uncomfortable being in debt to my friends and owing them money. So I've owed my friends money before, but a small amount. So I paid it back very quickly. If we're thinking about large quantities of cash, I wouldn't want to be in their debt at all. Next question. 43, I think. How do you get by when you are having a financially difficult month? And get by is manage to live to pay for everything. Now, in the past, I've had financially difficult months, so it's been difficult to get by. But luckily, I don't have that many overheads, meaning I don't have that many expenses. I don't have to pay a mortgage. I have to pay rent, of course. I don't have a car, so I don't need to pay car insurance, petrol, none of that. So if push comes to shove, like if worst comes to worst, and I don't make any money this month, it's not a big deal if it's a temporary thing, because I can just dip into my savings and spend less money. If it were a more long-term thing, then I'd have to move back home with my parents, which I don't think they'd be very happy about, because I've been here now for 3 weeks and I'm leaving this weekend. But yeah, I think they'll be glad to see the back of me. I think they need their independence just as much as I need mine. Next question. Do you ever splash out on luxury items as a treat? And remember, splash out is spend a lot of money. I don't usually do this. No, I don't have very expensive taste, so I rarely splash out on expensive items. If I were to splash out on something, it would be a nice holiday, or it would be a nice meal. When I go back to Brussels, see my fiance again, I reckon we'll go out for a nice meal, because we're back together again. And I wouldn't mind going to a fancy place. I wouldn't mind going to a posh place, just to splash out a little bit. But physical items, nah, it's not me. I don't see the point in buying some shoes that would cost 500 euros when you can buy some shoes that cost 50 euros. For me, it's nonsense. It doesn't make any sense. There are people who are into these kind of things, and fair enough. Live and let live. You do you. But it's definitely not me. And the last question related to finance. Should parents set aside money for their children's university fees? I mean, in an ideal world, yes. In an ideal world, parents who have children would try to save up money every month to be able to give their kids the best education possible. And I'm sure that is the dream and objective of all parents. What's the problem? Well, usually it's difficult to get by, and even more difficult to get by if you have kids, because kids are expensive. So I don't think many parents are able to set aside money for their children's university, because it's already so expensive to just keep a child alive. They need to eat. They need clothes. They need toys. So, again, ideally, yes. Realistically, no. And on that note, let's finish off with the usual topic that I start with, and it is routines and habits. So, what time do you usually wake up on your days off? On my days off, I try not to set an alarm, but I'd say that I probably wake up at 9-ish on my days off. So on Saturday and Sunday, if I didn't stay out late the night before, I'm going to get up at 9-ish, around 9, about 9. Next question. Do you find it hard to get out of bed when it's cold outside? Yes, but that's not the worst thing. I'd say that it's even harder when it's cold outside to get out of the shower. Because if you're having a nice warm shower, you're warming up little by little, getting yourself clean, putting your shampoo, shower gel, you're nice and toasty, nice and warm, and then you turn off the tap and the shower stops running, and you get out of the shower, and it's freezing. And this is when you might start like shaking, you're shivering. So getting out of the shower is much worse than getting out of bed when it's cold outside. Next question. How do you tidy up your home when you're in a big hurry? I tidy up in a very superficial way. So I'll try to grab things, put them back where they should be, and that's it. Maybe I'll wipe the kitchen top. Maybe I'll quickly, put the dishwasher on or do the washing up. Or I'll maybe hide some mess somewhere that people won't see. So when I tidy up, I don't tidy up in the best way. That's me admitting it. All right, this last round is a little bit quicker, but I hope you don't mind. Next question is, do you usually put off doing chores until the very last minute? I do indeed. I definitely put off doing chores until the last minute. I try to leave it as long as possible. If it's something that I really don't want to do, then I'm not going to do it until I have no other option, until it's non-negotiable. So yeah, I postpone doing chores until the end. I'm a procrastinator, like many people. And the last question, the 50th question. What is the best way to wind down before going to sleep? This is similar to the question about switching off. I like to have a good dinner, watch a series, have some cuddles. But I know a lot of people say that you shouldn't look at your phone before you go to bed, and that helps to sleep better and wind down. But I usually do it, but I'll watch mindless videos. So videos that have no educational value to them. I might do some editing, to be perfectly honest. And yeah, I'll put my eye mask on, my sleeping mask, and I'll try to just close my eyes and chill. And that's how I try to wind down. And, well, guys, that is just about it. That is me answering a total of 50 questions related to 10 different topics using phrasal verbs. And I've just checked the time. I've been speaking for like an hour and 10 minutes. So that's more than enough. And that's actually longer than my usual conversation classes with my community, British English Immersion Club. And if you would like to discuss many of these questions with me so I can hear you, correct your mistakes, and have a laugh with other like-minded students, I'll leave a link in the description so you can join my group classes and also check out my application. The link will also be in the description. So thank you so much if you are among the few people to get to the end of this podcast. I love you lots, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye!